DJI Mavic Mini, Q&A with DroneDJ. Got that coming up next. On Tuesday night Rotor Talk Live, Marcus Crawford and I had the privilege of talking with Haye Kesteloo from DroneDJ about a number of subjects. One of the subjects that we did spend a considerable amount of time on was only information regarding the DJI Mavic Mini. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and roll that clip in its entirety. I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to go ahead and get started here. Haye, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight on a short notice. I know this was short notice, but you know, this happened to be what I would call a banner day for DJI when the product that they release is overshadowed by the product that is coming. And so without any further ado, I just want to jump right into this. Hey, just want to get your thoughts right away on that. I mean, you know, the Osmo Mobile 3 came out today and people aren't really talking about it.
No, I think you're right on that. I mean, it seems like the entire of 2019, we've been waiting for DJI to come out with the drone, and we're getting all these other amazing products, which is great and it's fine. But I think most of the drone enthusiasts want something that flies. And now we get today the DJI Osmo Mobile 3, which of course is great as well. But yeah, I mean, talking about a Mavic Mini is a lot more interesting, I think, than the Osmo Mobile 3. And if we look at our traffic at DroneDJ today, it's obvious. I mean, the Osmo is nice, but it's the Mavic Mini that everybody's talking about.
Well, you know, I wanted to divert to Marcus for a second. Now, Marcus actually got an Osmo Mobile 3. He saw it after what kind of convinced him was to what Rick Smith got one and did a review on it, and that kind of convinced him to do that. Marcus, why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, well, so I had the original Osmo Mobile, and Bill and I talked about this. Honestly, it was kind of useless, at least for me. It was more trouble to set it up and mess around with it than it was worth. So what happens is when something is difficult to set up, you end up not using it as often as you should. But after I watched Rick Smith's video this morning, and I saw that it could be useful to me. For instance, I'll give you an example. When I'm making a drone video and I'm doing a narration, to be able to set that thing up that it can follow you around.
Oh yeah.
Basically, it's an automated cameraman, right? So I think that was worthwhile enough for me. And secondly, the second thing that got me was the price at $139. You know, boom. If it was $200, it probably would have been different. But $139, I figure if I use it 2 or 3 times a year, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and you know, we're just going to that's going to probably end the Osmo Mobile 3 talk for the evening, and want to focus on you know basically why we have Haye in. Haye has broken a lot of news recently, and you know, one of the first things I want to say is, you know, Haye, when it comes to, you know, it used to be the old thing, I'd wake up and look at the Wall Street Journal. Well, now I wake up and I look at DroneDJ, and I also look at Sally French too. So you guys are my news sources that I go to for drones every single day without fail. Wanted to say that first. You know, you've been following this, and I've been following this all along, and it's just like each day it gets a little more interesting with the information that we're finding out. So I want to hear your thoughts. First of all, what I want to hear your thoughts on, you know, we're calling it the Mavic Mini, but is there any chance that they'll call this a Spark 2? What are your thoughts about that?
Might be. That could actually be. I mean, one of our readers pointed out that apparently DJI listed the Spark on a special segment of their website, but it just said Spark at the top. And apparently they recently changed that to Spark Series, which would imply that there's going to be different iterations or different versions of the Spark. Yeah, in that case, this might end up being the Spark 2. However, I think at the same time, it has such a strong resemblance to the DJI Mavic Pro and the DJI Mavic 2 that it wouldn't surprise me if they actually were to stick with the name DJI Mavic Mini. I mean, it kind of tells you everything you need to know. It means it's a foldable drone. It means that it's smaller, portable, less expensive, most likely. So the name in that sense is kind of powerful as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if they stick with Mavic Mini.
You know, one of the things you talked about today, which I'm finding just absolutely fascinating, is that you know, this could be under the 250 grams rule, and if that is, and I agree with you 100%, they won't be able to make enough of them. They'll fly off the shelves.
That's what I think too. I mean, at the elevating safety meeting in Washington, D.C. in May of this year, they mentioned that every drone as of January 2020 from DJI that weighs more than 250 grams would include ADS-B receiving capability. If they make this drone below 250 grams, I think they hit the ball out of the ballpark, so to say. You get away from a lot of the legal issues, for instance, the drone registration with the FAA here in the US, but also in other countries. If your drone is below 250 grams, you're pretty much good to fly. I mean, you still need to adhere to all the drone regulations, of course. I mean, it doesn't mean that now all of a sudden you can fly at night and beyond line of sight and over people and all those things. But it not having to register your drone or not having to get a certificate or passing an exam makes a big difference. And I think with that, DJI would open up this drone to pretty much all the consumers. And I think it might also draw people back in who have now thought, hey, flying a drone is getting too expensive, but mostly too complicated. Like I was with Paul Atkin from DroneU in New York recently, and we were interviewing people at the DJI store, asking them about lens and if they knew about the changing drone rules for hobbyist pilots. And most people look at you and have no idea what lens is all about. So if you need to get all those consumer drone pilots up to date with the rules and the changing rules and having them to use these systems, it's difficult. A lot of people aren't up to date with that stuff. And I think if you get a drone out there that weighs less than 250 grams, and again, you still need to apply with all the regular rules, but at least you don't have to go through the registration process, first of all. I think you make a lot of things a lot more easy for them.
Marcus, you have a question for Haye?
Well, I actually have a comment. So one of the things you touched on was price, and I'm glad that you mentioned under 250 grams does not mean that you don't have to follow the rules. I tell people that all the time. Yeah, you wouldn't have to have a number on the side, but other than that, everything else still applies. But when you mentioned price and competition, so I've been kind of fooling around with some of the lower price drones, the Hubsan Zino, the Fimi X8 SE. They're not DJI. Let me clear that up right now. They're not even close. But what they are, I think, is the attractiveness of them is that sub $500 price point. And you know that, and Bill and I have talked about this many times, DJI is not going to leave. They want to own the market. And so they're not going to leave any niche to somebody else.
I totally agree. And actually, this kind of brings us back also to the DJI Osmo Mobile. If you look at the original, I think that was priced around 350, 340 or something. Then the second iteration came out. They dropped the price significantly to 129, I think, or 139 it was. And now we have the third one, and it's 119. So meanwhile, the device has become better, more capable, smaller, smarter, lighter, longer battery life, I believe, as well, and cheaper. It's kind of the same idea that you have a DJI Mavic 2, you have the Mavic Air, even though that's an older product, but let's say it's positioned right below it. And now you come out with the third model, which is smaller, cheaper, lighter, and maybe not as capable, but let's say for sure more capable than a DJI Spark. To me, that sounds like a home run.
It really does. Hey, you put out a video. You had a video sent to you on the Mavic Mini today. Did you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. This was sent to us through Twitter. We got a private message on Twitter, and somebody had put this link to this video in there. By the time we got to see it, it had less, I think, than 100 views. So it was posted only 2 hours ago. So this was pretty brand new. And basically, what you see is you see somebody holding one version, at least, of the DJI Mavic Mini, and basically they're turning it around so you get to kind of see it from different angles. And it's different than looking at pictures, because now with the hands in there, you kind of get a sense for how big this is and possibly how heavy it is. It's still going to be a close call, I think. I mean, in the leaked specs that we've seen, if those specs are correct, this drone would weigh 245 grams. It's almost hard to believe with a camera and a gimbal and a battery and the motors and everything that you can actually produce a Mavic Mini that would weigh less than 250 grams. But then again, if you're going to make a lightweight DJI Mavic Mini, why would you shoot for 300 grams or 350 or 400 if you can possibly get it below 250? I mean, getting it below 250 is a game changer. And I think this video shows that that might well be the case. I don't think, when I look at this drone, I don't think it's a heavy aircraft at all. It seems light to me.
Marcus, did you have a chance to look at that video?
I did, and I got to tell you, hey, the first thing I looked at was, like you said, the hand, and that gave you the idea of the size of the thing. The other thing that I want to add is I was kind of late to the party buying a Spark. I've only had one for a few months, but what because I had a Mavic 2, why do I need a Spark, right? But what I learned with a drone of that size is how convenient it is when you're traveling. When you're on it, when you're flying someplace, you just put it in a backpack. You can take it with you. And the other thing is, it's so easy to deploy, so quick and easy to deploy, and so quick and easy to retrieve. And this Mavic Mini is going to fill that. It's going to be even better at that. So another reason to believe that it would be a home run.
Oh, I totally agree. Remember when the DJI Mavic Air was launched in New York, and what's his name? Michael, I think. Michael Perry. He left DJI not too long ago, but he was presenting the DJI Mavic Air, and I think he had 3 of them in his pockets. He had like a vest on with like 1 here and 2 in his side pockets of his pants. And he's like, oh, this drone is so small, it's so lightweight, it's so portable, you can take it anywhere on your travels and your adventures. If you compare that to a DJI Mavic Mini, if that is in fact going to be less than 250 grams, it even blows the DJI Mavic Air out of the water.
Yeah.
It really does. Hey, I'm gonna share part of the article. I don't want to run the video because I don't want to have any copyright issues, but I'm going to show some of the pictures that you shared here, and we're gonna pull that up now, and I want to talk about that for a second here. Now, what's real interesting, and I noticed this when I was bringing these pictures back up, is on the picture in the upper right-hand corner where we're looking at the leg right here. Yeah. This is the first I noticed that it was completely exposed right here. And that's your biggest clue that this is a prototype, because you know, a real drone would obviously are going to have those wires covered up, and they're not covered up there. I don't know if that just caught my eye when I was looking at this evening.
I noticed that as well. I think you're right. I think this is an early prototype or an early model, maybe just assembled enough to get certain approvals in place. I don't think this will be the final product. However, on the other hand, if you need to get below 250 grams, you are going to probably have to make some concessions. So I don't think they would do something like this and leave the legs open. That'd be weird, I think. But they might have had to make some shortcuts here and there to get to that 250 grams number.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to talk about too, and you know, we see the USB-C in the back and also where the SD card is. Now, you know, the Mavic Air, getting the SD card out of the Mavic Air, that was an exercise in probably patience and mostly frustration. I would certainly hope that DJI had learned its lesson as far as that's concerned, because you know what, hey, every single time, you know, it's like I had to get a pencil or a pen or, you know, or a pin or something to pop that out. I mean, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, talking about these connections, we think that the final drone might in fact have USB-C. This doesn't seem to be USB-C yet. And also the micro SD slot. What kind of worries me a little bit with both of these openings is that they seem not to be covered by the battery door. So they might be just open to the elements, if you will, when you're flying around.
Right. Now, you know, the one thing that I do like, and I gotta give DJI some credit for that. You know, I remember early on with the Spark, a lot of people were talking about, you know, having issues, you know, where the battery would fall off in mid-flight, or having that type of concern. With a battery door, it's going to pretty much eliminate that possibility.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I had a Spark for a while, and I had some connectivity issues, and some people were saying that that had to do with the battery connection. This seems like a much better solution where the battery is fully enclosed. There's a lid on it. You shut it or you close it, and it should be safe and secure in there, I think.
Well, one of the other things, and I wanted to touch base with you on this. I have some friends in Australia, and also have another friend here who have been giving me some information. He heard that a Mavic Air 2 is not far behind. In fact, saying we're probably looking at an October timeframe for a Mavic Air 2.
I haven't heard anything yet about a DJI Mavic Air 2, so I'm not sure. That might be. The question I would have is like, what is DJI's product lineup eventually going to be? Because they're kind of stepping on each other's toes with all these drones. I think it'd be hard to squeeze drones in between existing products. However, then again, with DJI, you never know. I mean, they're fast, they're aggressive, and they're not afraid to cannibalize on even their own products. So,
well, and one of the things, and I talked about this with Marcus and Ron, is the fact, okay, what we're not going to see from DJI this year, I don't believe we're going to see another in-person type event, okay? I think they have been getting a lot of traction, and I talked about this with Ken Dono on Saturday. They've been getting a lot of traction from having these web-only launches.
Yeah.
And, when, say, for instance, you have, and I'll just pick Rick Smith because he's a great person to pick on. When you get it in the hands of a content creator, say like Rick Smith or Kelly Shores from Ready, Set, Drone, and they do a review, that holds, I think, as much or even more weight than having a big event like the one we went to in Brooklyn. I mean, that was no small, DJI dropped some serious coin for that event. I mean, we were there and it was first class all the way. I mean, they spent all kind of money for that.
Yeah, and that was even extra expensive because they had to postpone it from early summer to late summer. So they paid twice pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, and so that's what we're thinking is we're not going to see these again. And I think, they may just decide altogether that this is the best way to get the message out because, getting a drone in the hands of a content creator, say like maybe Aldrin Estachio from Flight Path or Kelly Shores from Ready, Set, Drone or Rick Smith from Drone Valley, getting them in their hands and having them out there for review at launch speaks volumes.
Oh, yeah, it does. And we've seen the DJI Osmo Pocket was an event in New York City. Was actually still quite expensive, I think, and still a pretty big setup. But since then, the FPV package, they didn't have an event for. The DJI Osmo Action, they didn't have an event for. The DJI Osmo Mobile 3, they did not have an event for. So you're right. I mean, it seems that DJI kind of fine-tunes their launch strategy. However, if they come out with a big drone, let's say a $1,000 plus drone, I would imagine that they would have their own events like they did with the DJI Mavic Air, the DJI Mavic 2, and even with the Spark, actually, they had one, even though that's, 2 years ago now. So I think for a big drone launch, they might still have an event. I would hope they do at least. For smaller items, I think you're right. I think it's going to be web only.
Just want to take a minute and welcome some people in the chat. Mike Getz, Drone Shots, Brad Hendo, Lauren is here, Rick Halber is here, Mike Kinney, Mel is here. Let's look at who else is here. RCDP, Logan Carpenter, Jeremy Zahora, of course, Steve Carpenter's here, Thomas O'Sullivan, welcome tonight. True Drone Reviews, Brian, welcome. Just wanted to get out some shout outs about that. One of the things that, with all of this and getting all of this information and trying to digest this is, DJI broke some ground when they came out with the Tello. I mean, it really introduced drones to a whole, it opened them up, I would think, to a whole new level of people here. Getting some youngsters involved, say like 10, 11, 12 years old, and getting them interested in things. And I think if they do this right here, if they get it under the 250 grams and they have it with enough features, especially having the 4K 30, I think it's like you said, I really think it will be a massive home run. I think stores will be, out of stock as soon as they come out. It's just going to be a win for everybody.
I think there's a good chance. I mean, again, if you look at the Osmo Mobile 3, they've done the same thing. They make improvements. And you could argue that the Osmo Mobile 2 was quite good already. The 3 is slightly better. If you apply the same logic to drones, then yeah, there's room for improvements, especially when you look at the Spark. But even when you look at the DJI Mavic Air, I think there's room for improvements. So if you come out with a drone that's smaller and lighter than both of those, at least cheaper than the DJI Mavic Air, and it's foldable, you can take it with you anywhere, and it has all the features that most people want, which is 4K video, obstacle avoidance. I think you have a home run. And I think the DJI, I mean, they're already dominating the market, but I think they're going to completely dominate the consumer market if they get it below 250 grams.
Marcus, share with Haye about what you found out at Walmart.
Oh, yeah. So I was out flying your drone the other day, right? So stopped at Walmart on the way home. Hey, got to get your groceries someplace. And of course, all of us good drone people, you have to go by the drone aisle if you're at Walmart. Anyway, they had the Spark on clearance for $329 with the remote. So the Spark plus the controller for $329. That's a phenomenal price, and so it makes it kind of pretty clear that they're moving them out for a reason.
I think you're right. I think they're clearing inventory. I mean, we've seen the same thing happen with the DJI Mavic Pro at retail outlets like Costco and stuff. They come out with these big promotions, and they just need to move products. If DJI is about to release a new drone and you're Walmart and you're stuck with thousands of Sparks, yeah, you better get them out the door, because you won't be selling them anymore pretty soon, I think.
If you like the content from today's video, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and tell others about the channel. Also, be sure to check out my Facebook page, where I do post daily updates regarding the drone and drone industry and anything DJI, Autel, or Parrot related. Also, be sure to check out my Twitter account, where I do post daily updates, and Instagram as well. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, it's a great day to fly.